Commodore fans, are you ready? It's time for another episode of the Vandy247 podcast on the 440 Sports Network. Keep it locked right here for the best Vanderbilt coverage. Whether it's Clark Lee on the gridiron, Mark Byington and Shea Ralph on the hardwood, or Tim Corbin on the diamond, the Vandy247 crew has you covered. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do. Also, like this video and subscribe to the YouTube channel. That's free and easy to do. Follow the crew on Twitter, Apple Podcast, and Spotify for podcast episodes. Lastly, if you're interested in sponsoring the show, email Chris Lee at chrislee70@gmail.com. And now, pull up a chair. It's time for another episode of the Vandy247 podcast.
Welcome back to Vandy247 Live. I'm your host, Billy Derrick, alongside Luke Wyatt on a Wednesday morning, a colder than normal, at least colder than the last couple of weeks, Wednesday morning here in Nashville. But we're talking Vanderbilt athletics nonetheless. Before we do, though, I want to tell you about our baseball sponsor. We'll be talking a lot of baseball today. We'll be talking some basketball as well. And we got a football spring game coming up on Saturday, so we'll probably be touching on all three major sports here, but I do want to tell you about Sanders Moving. They are leaders among moving companies here in Nashville and the surrounding area. Their team of professional movers are focused on delivering efficient, hassle-free moving at an affordable price. Whether you're moving across town or across the country, Sanders Moving has you covered. Visit them online at tedrsandersmoving.com. Luke, what's going on?
Nothing much. Got, like you said, a whole lot going on. Basketball portal, baseball has had a great weekend, a great week, and football spring game getting ready to wrap up. A lot going on. Yeah,
and I want to start with baseball there. It's good to see this team. You know, it's amazing how a narrative and a talking point can change after just 1 week. You know, you go back, look at last weekend, the sweep to now #1 Arkansas, who I know it's Missouri, but they pounded Missouri. And then you turn around, Vanderbilt goes to Gainesville, and yeah, Florida might be 1-11, but here in a few weeks, Florida could also be turning it around and getting hot. I mean, that's how it is in the SEC. It's got to be good, Luke, for this team to start to turn narratives, you know, change their confidence, you know, because it's never easy. They've never swept Florida in Gainesville. That's not easy to do.
No, it's not. Historically, Florida, you know, Tim Corbin, in his era, he has a losing record against two teams, Texas A&M and Florida. I think he's either even or maybe -1 against South Carolina, but everybody else he's has a winning record against. It's just one of those things. Now, I don't know if that's because he coached with Florida. I'm not sure. But, you know, like you said, it can turn around quick. Florida yesterday beats #9 Florida State. So, you know, that's a great win for them. If they want to get back in the picture, they're going to have to win some games here pretty quick.
And then basketball, and we'll talk more a lot later in the show about some of these pickups. But you get Jalen Washington from North Carolina, and then you also get Mason Nicholson from Jacksonville State. Those are two different 6'10" guys, but look, we talked about it. That's exactly what they needed. They needed size, they needed length. Nicholson is a 6'10", 280 type guy, whereas Washington is 6'10", 230, can shoot it a little bit, skilled, can run the floor, and that's kind of your Jalen Carey replacement. You would think, and you know that's the mold, the Byington type of player that can run the floor. Not saying Carey couldn't, but Carey's more of a slow pace guy, kind of bully you down low. And obviously he's in Knoxville now with Rick Barnes, which I'm sure we'll touch on. But Luke, it's encouraging to see that they've gotten what they've needed fairly quickly. Now they've got to get some guards in here, as we know, and we'll talk about that. But to get Washington and Nicholson, that's exactly what they needed.
It is, and basically what we've done, you know, last year our bigs had to be Carey and McLaughlin. Played them a lot at the same time. That's why we are always in trouble toward the end of games, because they'd be in foul trouble. Well, now you got two bigs. You've also got the freshman, which I don't know if he'll contribute at all. I'm thinking he's more of a possible red shirt. Leverett is who I'm speaking of. But there's still some rumors out there that we may be still getting one or two more bigs. So that, and my hope for this team is another John Jenkins fall out of the sky, or somebody that can shoot and just can fill it up and create his own shot as well. If they get one of those guys to go with it to replace Edwards, I feel real good about it.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, and there's still plenty of guys to continue to talk about and look at, and we'll do that. We've got a lot of questions to mailbag, so that's why I want to go ahead and get to the mailbag. I think we've already had a couple new ones roll in as well. Our mailbag is brought to you by Sutherland and Belk, family-owned injury law firm. If you or a loved one has been hurt or in an accident, give Taylor or Russell a call at 615-846-6200 to learn about your rights and whether or not they can help. Also, our guest line, Mr. Luke Wyatt, brought to you by John Levin, good friend of the show, Wobble Bond Dickinson. Thanks to student athletes at Vanderbilt for their dedication, effort, and hard work. And our guest line is also brought to you by Yeaman Packaging Systems, leaders in end-of-line packaging automation. All right, look, I'm going to try to loop these together, these questions together with sports, because a lot of times we get mixed up with them and we start talking back and forth about different sports. But we'll start with football and spring game. Somebody asked, Vandy Guide 96, what should we look for at the spring game on Saturday? And this is there's some new faces, right? MK Young at running back. I'm really interested to see what he does if he plays. I know he was back at practice yesterday, and they're actually practicing tomorrow again before the spring game on Saturday. We've talked about him, Luke. He's explosive. I think he can really help this team. I'm interested to see him. Bryson Coleman has been really impressive throughout the spring as well. And who's healthy, right? I know Stowers didn't practice on Tuesday. I'm sure he would play in the spring game. And in the spring, look, spring practice and even spring games probably don't matter a ton. If we're being really honest, and Luke, being around the football program, spring as a whole probably hasn't mattered a whole lot. Now it matters less now, right, than it ever did. But I would mention Bryson Coleman. How much does Pavia play? That's something else I'm interested in, Luke. But there's a lot to watch for. I'm not saying you should go there looking for maybe great football, and Pavia to play for 4 quarters, because that probably won't happen. But it's going to be good to get to see the team back out there.
Yeah, spring ball was always, you started it and you say we got 15 days that we don't want to get anybody hurt. That's the first thing. Second thing is you want to see of the young guys who you're going to be able to maybe depend on when we get to August. The third thing is getting reps now, not back then, but now for your transfer guys, your early transfers that came in, see where they stand, like the Jordan Whites of the world and that type of thing. I'm excited about what they've gotten out of spring. I think I kind of see where they still need a little bit of help maybe on the offensive line and maybe another receiver, although I think the Martell Height thing is gaining a lot of ground. He's going to get some reps over there for sure. So and look, I think these young kids, Boski Barrett and McVay, have a chance to really step up and be as good or better than what we had last year.
I'm looking for the young secondary players, and not just young, but the newcomers that we didn't even see last year. Mark Davis, Marlon Jones, who obviously, unfortunately, didn't play last year, but they were going to be a part of that big portal class last year. They'll be playing, and just really interested. I mean, Marlon's situation was so tough, and how does he come back from that? And Mark, who had a brutal injury, how does he come back from that? But also Carson Lawrence. Does this, as a safety, and we'll see where these guys end up playing. I'm sure there's coaches in these rooms that may not even know exactly where they might slot a guy starting in the fall. But Carson Lawrence, Davis, and Jones are guys I'm really watching. And then who steps up at the backup quarterback spot? Is it Blaze Bertowitz, who has looked good throughout the spring? What happens with Drew Dickey? What happens with St. Hilaire or Muschamp? Luke, you would imagine a guy out of that list transfers. You can't imagine they keep all those guys.
Yeah, I do agree with that. One of them will be gone. I do think that of those guys, there's a couple of them that value a Vanderbilt education, and their parents do. So that maybe give you a hint there. But I think possibly Jack Elliott coming in as a true freshman Don't
Yeah.
sleep on him. Here's a kid that of his tape, I love watching his tape. I think that kid's going to be a really good player for Vanderbilt in the future. Obviously not this year, but as time moves on. And I've always been a big St. Hilaire fan.
Yeah, the who's the first team offensive line in the spring game? I think right away will be interesting too. Right now, I think you put it at Glass, McConnell on the left side, White at center, who we would think, and then Mitchell and Henderson. Chase Mitchell, you would think a start. Henderson, the transfer from, is it South Dakota State?
Yes.
Is that it? Okay.
Yeah, and I agree with those 5 for sure. I do.
Yeah. Yeah, Glass. I mean, and that's, new faces, White, Glass, and Henderson, all new. McConnell, I think we all knew he was gonna eventually start. Good size, can move well at that guard spot, and then Chase Mitchell, who we saw last year. So that's a little bit of what we're watching the spring game. And I want to say that's the only football question. I think it is, unless another one sneaks in here. Okay, basketball. Let's go there. Vandy Danger asks, is it taking too long to sign people from the portal and for Vandy to have enough NIL money to sign a good team? Or does Vandy have enough NIL money to sign a good team? I mean, taking too long, I don't, look, it's not like this is a 2-day process, and especially at Vanderbilt, it probably takes another couple of days compliance-wise. But look, they've gotten what we thought they needed, absolutely needed. In some height, they got it. But in terms of the NIL money, Luke, they're not short on it, is what I would say. And I mean that they're aiming high. And somebody on the board brought up the fact that, on Twitter, I don't know if you're probably not active on Twitter, Luke, but guys, will post who their offers are, and this guy's been contacted by this many schools. Vanderbilt's on pretty much it's seemingly every player's list. So Byington and staff are working their butts off. And like I said, they're aiming high. So I'm not worried about how long it takes, and money wise, they've got plenty of it.
Yeah. I don't think money's the problem. I think it's just such a different day now. I think that Byington already knows 2 or 3 more guys that are going to come to Vanderbilt, but there's some negotiations and there's hammering details, and they're never going to come out and say he's here until it's 100% solid, because the worst thing that can happen is you come out and say, I don't know, I'll just throw out a name, Frankie Collins. Let's say, yeah, Frankie Collins is committed. Well, until he signs, it means nothing, because somebody else can come in and say, wow, Vandy's getting him. We really need it. All right, let's offer him $200,000 more. That's what we're dealing with nowadays, and it's a shame, but it is what it is, and it's not going to change. So I think that's it. I think there's already 2 or 3 guys that Byington feels really good about, but we're not going to hear it publicly until it's 100%.
Pessimistic Door asks, where would you rank the likelihood in signing the following transfers? And if others, that you want to add on, feel free. Gabe Dines, Frankie Collins, Honor Huff, kid from Chattanooga, and A.K. Okereke. I would go number 1, Frankie Collins. I know it's been between him and Oklahoma. I think Vandy feels good about that. I feel good about that. A.K. Okereke, heard it's between Vandy and Stanford. I know Stanford, coming on with some offers. Still feel good about him. Honor Huff, I think there's a chance. There's a chance. He put out on Twitter it's down to 5 schools: Iowa, St. John's, West Virginia, Vanderbilt, and Pitt. And then I would throw, Gabe Dines. I'm not sure. I think with now 2 6'10" guys that Vanderbilt's added, Luke, I don't know that Dines is as much of a target for them anymore. But I wouldn't rule it out at this point.
No, I agree with pretty much most of that. I would say we also have to remember this: the freshman guard, the 4-star guard, the Lewis kid, factors in all of this.
Yeah.
If you can get him, and I know people say we don't win with freshmen. Tyler Tanner was a big part of the success we had last year as a freshman. So he can come right in, I think, and help and play right away, not necessarily start. So I think 1 or 2 of those guards for sure. And then I still think we have a good chance at Okereke. I feel good about him.
Yeah, Nick Lewis, the 4-star guy. That's a good point. I forgot about him. And that Vanderbilt hasn't done a whole lot of that. Didn't do a whole lot of that last year, of course. I mean, it was going to be hard to bring an impact freshman, and Tanner was, but it's just not, bringing in those impact freshmen, Luke, aren't as common. It's the portal. They'll go to a school and then they'll get in the portal right after their freshman year.
Yeah.
And then maybe they'll reevaluate, but that's not as common anymore. I would keep an eye on Mike James from NC State. Did not play this past year, but played a couple of years ago at Louisville. He was a highly rated guy. Mike James, I would keep an eye on him as well. Another question from Pessimistic Door. What inside knowledge do you have on what went down between Mark Byington and Carey? I don't think it was anything, super serious. I think it was pretty simple. I don't know that there's a ton of bad blood, maybe from Jalen's point of view, considering where he's at now. But Luke, he wanted starting minutes, didn't get them, and he went elsewhere. I mean, I think it really is that simple. And look, Mark Byington, it's he's looking for culture fit, right? Probably number one. He's looking for play style fit. Carey could play in this system. I'm not saying he couldn't, but does Jalen Washington fit better? Yeah, probably does. At 6'10", he's taller, he's longer, more athletic. We'll see. And Carey's a good player, right? And fans are going to miss him. I liked watching him play. You liked watching him play, Luke. But in today's day and age, you got to be a fit. You also got to be a culture fit. And, not everybody's going to be able to get the starting minutes they want. And, look, it's probably not going to start at Tennessee. Maybe he does. But, I don't think it was anything where the staff has ill will toward him,
No, I don't think so. He'd been with Coach for 2 years. So, I don't, unless something went south quick, I don't think that's a problem. Again, Jalen was fun. And the only reason he's probably at Tennessee is because Rick Barnes realized how good he played when that was 2 of his best games was against Tennessee. Carving out room underneath, and when he got his butt down low and played down there, he's fine. Now when he started jacking up threes, that's the bad part of Jalen Carey, and I don't think you'll see that much at Tennessee unless they develop his shot better. It doesn't bother me any of that. This transfer stuff, it's just the way it is now. It's rent a player. That's all it is. It's rent a player and bring in really high talented freshmen that can help you early.
You think Memorial will be fun when Tennessee comes next year?
Oh, yeah. We'll have all kinds of creative stuff.
Yeah. I mean, we saw what the students were chanting at Malik Dia. I can only imagine. And look, Dia, was at Vanderbilt for just 1 year. And I mean, similar to Carey, but, this is Jalen Carey. I mean, he was a, big time player, and that's going to be a sight to see when he comes to a Memorial. I think that's it for basketball. I think we got baseball pretty much on all the way here. Cousin CJ, 5 of our last 6 SEC baseball opponents are in the top 25. How many of these series do we need to win to host a regional, and which are the best opportunities to do so? All right, Luke, they got Oklahoma in Norman this weekend. Oklahoma ranked 19th in the country. That's a series they can win, and compared to the other teams they've got to play, probably need to win it if you want to host. Just because you've got number 7 Georgia coming in here next weekend. You've got a trip to Oxford in a couple of weeks. You've got number 12 Alabama coming in here on May 2nd. You've got to go to Knoxville to play Tennessee. I mean, those 4 teams right there are all top 10 in the RPI. Georgia, Ole Miss, Alabama, and Tennessee. And then they end it with a Kentucky team that's down from last year, who obviously they could very well sweep and probably should. But Luke, at 7-5 right now, I know we know last year showed that 13-17 can get you into the tournament, but with this person asking how many series they need to win to host a regional, I say 4 out of the next 6, because you look at last year and the SEC teams that hosted regionals. Georgia hosted with 17 wins, A&M with 20 wins, Arkansas with 19, Tennessee and Kentucky with 22. And it changes year to year compared to, what other SEC teams are doing at the top. But I think 16 to 18 wins you probably need to get to host a regional, and I think that likely means winning 4 out of your next 6 series if you want to host.
Yeah, let's look at our first 4. We've had 3 sweeps in there. We got swept by Arkansas, we swept A&M, we swept Florida. Lost 2 of 3 at Auburn. So I don't know that it's necessarily series wins. It's
Right.
just, if you can sweep somebody in there, like you said, a Kentucky at the end, that may be the one that pushes you into hosting a regional. And I think it will come down to that. I don't know what will happen in those other 5 series, but I think the Kentucky series will be very big for Vanderbilt. I think having to win probably 2 and maybe sweep to host a regional.
And Luke, they're 17-3 at home. So you look at those, if you can take at least 1 from Georgia, that's a plus. If you can take at least 1 from Alabama, maybe even win that series, that's a plus. And just don't get swept on the road and then sweep Kentucky, you're probably hosting.
Yes.
And it's just like you said, you can't get swept and you need to sweep when you get the chance to. Kentucky's a chance to sweep. And like you said, that series will be big at the end of the season. Right now, though, people forget or may not realize Vandy's resume is phenomenal. They're number 8 in the RPI. They got a number 13 strength of schedule, and they got 10 quad 1 wins. Now, it's still early, but look, they're set up to host if they can stay on track here, which, like I said, it's amazing how things can change in the span of just 1 week.
Well, how it can change in a span of 2 days. Like I said, we go to Florida and look great and sweep Florida. They turned right around last night and beat number 9 Florida State, and that helps Vanderbilt. So and you see what A&M did in Tennessee. They out-homer Tennessee something like 11-3 or something in that doubleheader. So a team that we swept at home. So it changes week to week. Guys get confident, bats get hot, and a team that I feel like this Oklahoma series will be the key. If we can, like you said, if we can win 2, then I think we're well on our way to hosting a regional. We got to win 2.
Well, speaking of Oklahoma, they lost to Dallas Baptist. They got walloped by Dallas Baptist in the midweek last night, and Vanderbilt obviously beat Dayton 9-2. Jason King's former team. Corbin after the game said, "Not everyone does that. You see a lot of good teams lose on Tuesday night. Vandy's 9-0 in the midweeks."
Yes.
And 5 of their wins have come from the run rule. They've been pretty dominant in the midweek, Lou. That's gonna, and they beat some good teams. Western Kentucky's a good team. Dayton's not a bad team.
Right.
So that's not easy to do.
No.
Let's see here. We've got another baseball question. I don't think we've had this one yet. Vandy fan Pate, create your all-time Vanderbilt baseball lineup. All right, I've got mine, Luke, and we're gonna rumble through. I'll go 1 through 9 in the order, and you tell me if you agree or would slot somebody else in. You ready?
Are we talking all time or are we talking Corbin era?
Because that'll be different.
I think you have to. I really do.
Yeah, I think you do. Let's go Corbin era.
Okay.
So I'd go leading off, playing second, Tony Kemp. What do you think?
Oh, I'm good with that. No.
Okay.
Keep rolling out.
Okay. Batting second, playing short, Dansby Swanson.
Okay.
Batting third, playing third base, Pedro Alvarez.
Okay, maybe fourth, but go ahead.
Okay. Batting fourth, and this is where the debate comes in, I think. Batting fourth and playing first, Aaron Westlake for me.
First baseman, yeah. Okay, right, go ahead. I don't want.
You could throw Xander Wheel in there. I mean, there's a lot.
I would take Westlake over Xander.
Okay. Batting fifth, playing right field, JJ Bleday.
Yes.
You got some good right fielders too, though. Rhett Wiseman, some other good ones. Batting sixth, and this is going to surprise people, but this is he's up there in the bigger names. I mean, top 5 position players, I think, in the Corbin era. Left fielder Dominic De La Osa.
Yeah, Dom was awesome.
Yeah, I mean, and he's a guy that's older. Like the younger fans probably wouldn't know who that is, but really good hitter. I think he's. At one point was the all-time hits leader, might still be. I mean, he was a really good player. Batting seventh and catching, and catcher's hard. I mean, that's just to come up with a catcher in the Corbin era. I would go Kurt Casale, just because defensively he was so good.
Yes.
And was consistent at the plate. But you've also got Steven Scott, you've got Phil Clark, you've got Rodriguez. I mean, so many catchers have come through there, Luke.
Keep rolling. Yeah, you got probably at least half a dozen.
Yeah. Eighth, center field's hard too. I went Enrique Bradfield. I just defensively and his speed, put him towards the end of the lineup. Maybe he gets on, maybe he doesn't, but he's going to give you a ton of defense. You could throw Connor Harrell in there at center. I mean, heck, RJ Austin, as good as he's been in center. And then pitching, I go David Price, but I mean,
that's no brainer.
That's yeah. But that team, I mean, who's beating that team? That's hard to top.
Here's one glaring mistake that I didn't hear. Brian Reynolds. You have to have Brian Reynolds in the outfield instead of De La Osa, I think. That's what I disagree with. And I'd go weekend starters of Carson Fulmer, Kumar Rocker or Jack Leiter, and then David Price. So that's pretty stout.
It really is incredible. I mean, you put these teams together, and I mean, this would be fun to do. Like put them in a softball game or something like a.
Oh, it would be
a Corbin era softball game or something like that.
We need to run that by Corbs, like a celebrity softball game, a fundraiser type thing. Bring back. Yeah, that would be fun.
Well, that's what we got. Let us know what you think in the mailbag or in the comments, and we'll make some adjustments if we have to. Okay, JD Dorr. I keep reading that several players are silent commits to Vanderbilt men's basketball. What does silent commit mean? It means they tell the coach I'm coming, but they haven't signed, and it really probably doesn't mean much. It's a silent commit, if we're being honest.
No, it doesn't mean a thing.
Let's see here. Okay, Bex 4VU. In a recent podcast, Luke commented that he likes having Mac Rose in the lineup due to the quality of his ABs. His stats are less than stellar. He's hitting 259, 341 with an OPS of 767. What else does he bring, Luke, to the table that those numbers don't capture?
He extends pitchers' pitch counts. He has some of the best quality at bats Vanderbilt has. And if you want to replace him, who do you replace him with? I know everyone wants Holcomb's power in there, but he hasn't done anything. Chris Maldonado, who I'm rooting for big time, hasn't done anything. J.D. Rogers hasn't hit. Jaden Davis, is going to get his chances at DH at times like he did last night. But Mac Rose gives you good quality at bats just about every time, and it's usually 8 to 10 pitch at bats.
Yeah, I'd agree. The more I hear Corbin talk to Luke, whether it's an interview or the Monday night interview or the pregame interview, he's talking about slowing the game down, right? Yeah. He's talking about extending the game, extending that pitcher, making sure that you're playing defense. You're maintaining the ball. You're not playing defense. You're maintaining possession, kind of like football. It's kind of funny. They've taken that football approach, and that's what they've done. And they've made adjustments, right? That's what annoys me the most when people say, well, they're not adapting. Well, Corbin is as competitive as anyone, and probably the most competitive person any of us have been around. And, look, he's adjusting, and you can tell, like you said, with the Mac Rose at bats. And I know we've got a question about Braden Holcomb. The reason Holcomb, and somebody asked here, do you think Corbin's given up on Holcomb? I don't know if you'd say giving up, but it's about at bats. It's about staying in the box. It's about if you can get 10, 15 pitches out of a pitcher in one at bat, that's big. And that's what they're valuing. And like I said, like the more I hear Corbin talk, they're time of possession. You don't hear that a ton in baseball, but that's been something they've talked about.
I think using these we have 4 midweek games left. I think that's where you get what he did last night, playing Jaden Davis and Maldonado, and he gave Holcomb got a couple at bats. He put Rogers in defensively. I think on these rest of these weekday games, you're going to see that, to where if one of them starts to blossom, then they have a chance to get back in the lineup. But as of right now, that we're going to go with the lineup you saw Sunday at Florida.
Okay, Steve VU98, how does our NIL budget in basketball compare to last year's budget? Do you think we've gained or lost ground relative to other schools? I think it's better. than what they had last year. That their goal was to be more competitive with the rest of the league with the matching gift. That was announced. I think it was almost a month ago now, and that obviously has done the job. Luke, they're not low end, right? They're not bottom of the SEC, but they're kind of in that middle pack. They're fighting. They're competing for players with other schools. We talked about Oklahoma wanting Frankie Collins. I know Stanford is after Okereke. They're out west, but it's the budget is more than last year in terms of gaining or losing ground relative to other schools. I'd say they've gained ground, but I'm not positive because I don't know the budget of other schools. So that's what I've got. I'm not sure if you've got anything.
No, and look, guys, we don't know anything. Vanderbilt was picked 16th last year, and you finished 9th. So are we going to jump 7 more spots from 9th to 2nd? No. But can we be another NCAA team? Absolutely. We saw with what we've done already in the portal, what Coach Byington saw that was the weakness. And that is when people would beat us on the drive, there was no rim protection. And now that we've got length, and I think that's the huge thing in the SEC. You look at some, when these guys are so talented, they're going to get to the basket. You've got to have some resistance. And we didn't have much resistance last year.
Right. Now they've got it with Washington and Nicholson. Silverbird 73 last one. As a percentage, what is the NIL budget for women's versus men's basketball? Does Title IX come into play with NIL funds? I'm not as sure on the women's side. I think that's a good question. I mean, when you've got Michaela Blakes and Camille Pierre, we tracked the Camille Pierre drama. We thought she was leaving and she ends up coming back. Got to imagine some money's involved there and a lot of negotiations. I would say, Luke, Vanderbilt's women's basketball NIL budget, I'm not going to sit here and say it's top 25 in the country, but I'd venture to say compared to the other women's programs in the SEC, it may be higher than the men's. Now, I'm not saying they've got more money, but how it ranks might be a little bit better. And I don't know that for sure, but you don't know with the women's side of things.
Well, I'll throw out a little bracket of where I think the men and the women fall. I think the men fall anywhere from 7 to 10. I think the women fall anywhere from 5 to 8.
Yeah, that sounds accurate. That's what I would say too. Okay, they got a couple comments. Chris says Jalen Dean Vines is going to be a guy that to get buckets as a freshman. I'd agree. He's an SEC level athlete. Ricky, Texas does an alumni baseball game, by the way. Current team versus alumni players would be awesome at Vandy. Why not? I'd be down for that, Luke.
I'd be there. I'd love to see that. Just to be able to see some of those guys and talk to them again would be great.
Yeah. Well, Corbin always talks about it's hard to get them all together at the same time now, and there's so many of them. But that'd be really cool. But I think that's all we got in the mailbag. Luke, this weekend we got the spring game. Should be interesting, and big series for the baseball team against Oklahoma. If they could get 2 out of 3 there, Oklahoma's got a really good pitcher going Friday night. And that's not going to be easy. You could have some weather come into play. It's not going to be 75 and sunny. But man, if they could get 2 out of 3, that'll continue to set them up to potentially host.
When you play in Oklahoma, and I was years and years ago, we played out there in football. And we've played in Kansas in football and Kansas State. The wind is always a factor. Mm-hmm. So they come into play this weekend, not necessarily rain or whatever, but the wind, if it's blowing in or blowing out, is going to make a big difference.
Luke, appreciate you taking the time. Have a good weekend.
Yeah, you too.
All right, that's Luke Wyatt. Thanks, everybody, for joining another episode of Vandy